Sira stood in the middle of the wedding hall, her heart pounding louder than the drums outside. She wasn't wearing makeup. She didn't have a date. She had only come to celebrate her sister Mako's big day. But when Mako grabbed the microphone, pointed to Sira's belly, and shouted, "Let's all congratulate my pregnant sister," by a man who doesn't even claim her, the room went quiet. But one man rose from his seat, and what he said next turned the whole wedding upside down. Sira had always been in the background, unnoticed, living in the shadow of her beautiful sister Mako. Mako was the one everyone admired, the one with the perfect smile, the one who could light up any room. She had everything: beauty, charm, and endless attention from everyone in the village. Sira, on the other hand, kept to herself. She wasn't the center of attention. Instead, she focused on her studies, helped their mother at the market stall, and stayed out of the way. While Mako thrived in the spotlight, Sira quietly carried a pain that no one knew about. No one knew how hard it was for her to constantly be overlooked, to always be the invisible sister. But it wasn't just her quiet life that weighed her down. She had a secret she kept hidden from everyone, even from Mako. As the day of Mako's wedding approached, Sira thought she could keep her secret for a little longer. But no one expected that this day, meant for Mako's happiness, would be the day everything would change. The pain Sira had been carrying, the quiet suffering, was about to come to light, and it was Mako's wedding that would be the stage for it all. A few months before the wedding, Sira met someone who made her feel seen for the first time: Keanu. He wasn't like the others who chased after Mako. He was calm, kind, and soft-spoken. He came to the market often to buy wood polish and nails for his workshop. Sira and Keanu started talking little by little. At first, it was small greetings and shy smiles, but soon they found comfort in each other's presence. Keanu would help carry baskets, wait for her after work, and bring her roasted groundnuts wrapped in paper. Sira had never felt special before, but with him, she did. They would sit behind the stall after market hours and talk about life, dreams, and fears. Slowly, without planning it, Sira fell in love. Their bond grew stronger, and one evening, in the quiet corner of the empty market, their closeness turned into something deeper. It felt right in the moment, full of warmth and trust. But soon after, everything changed. Sira found out she was pregnant. She was scared, confused, and unsure of what to do. When she finally gathered the courage to tell Keanu, he disappeared, just like that. No goodbye, no explanation. One day, he was there, laughing with her under the shade of the mango tree. The next day, he was gone. Sira was heartbroken, not just because she was left alone, but because she didn't understand why he left. Was he ashamed? Did he never really care? She cried at night, wiped her tears during the day, and kept working at the stall like nothing had happened. She hid her growing belly under loose clothes and shawl. She avoided questions, avoided mirrors, and avoided looking her mother in the eyes. She didn't want anyone to know, especially not Mako. But secrets have a way of crawling into the light. Mako, always alert and nosy, started noticing small things. The way Sira avoided bending down, the way she held her stomach when she thought no one was looking. Mako's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She began asking sharp questions, pretending to be kind. Sira stayed quiet, praying her sister wouldn't find out. But Mako had already guessed the truth, and instead of feeling worried or protected, she felt something else: power. She didn't say anything right away, but the smirk on her face told Sira that the secret wouldn't stay hidden for long. Mako had always been the one in the spotlight. She was the sister everyone noticed first, the one with the perfect skin, bright smile, and loud laugh. People called her the village beauty, and she loved the attention. Sira, on the other hand, was soft-spoken. She stayed out of drama, didn't chase boys, and focused on her small world of books and work. But deep inside, Mako noticed something others didn't. Even without trying, Sira had something special, something Mako couldn't touch. It wasn't beauty or fashion, it was peace, strength, the way people felt safe around her, the way she didn't need approval to feel complete. Mako couldn't understand it, and that made her angry. Over the years, Mako smiled in front of Sira, but in her heart, she compared everything. She tried harder, dressed louder, laughed bigger, but when she saw the way Keanu used to look at Sira, gentle, focused, Something inside her burned. She knew Syrah didn't do anything to chase him, yet he gave her something Mako had been begging from others all her life, real attention. So when Mako found out that Syrah was pregnant, she didn't feel pity, she felt power. She didn't see her sister's pain or fear. She saw a chance to finally bring Syrah down in front of everyone. She kept the secret like a weapon, holding it close, planning the perfect moment to use it, days before her wedding, while others were thinking about decorations, cake, and dresses. Mako was thinking about revenge. She wanted the biggest audience possible. She wanted the moment to be unforgettable. So she smiled through her bridal shower, acted sweet during the wedding preparations, and gave Syrah a front row seat to all of it. But in her heart, she was waiting for that microphone, waiting for the silence, waiting for the moment when all eyes would be on her, and then on Syrah. She didn't think about the hurt it would cause, or how deeply it would cut her own sister. She only thought about control, finally flipping the script where she was the winner, and Syrah was the one people would whisper about. For Mako, it wasn't just a wedding, it was her stage, and she was ready to wear her white lace dress, not as a bride, but as a queen delivering judgment. Her heart wasn't full of love that day. It was full of envy dressed in silk. The wedding hall was full. Guests sat in rows, dressed in bright colors, fanning themselves as music played softly in the background. Mako stood at the front, wearing her white lace dress, looking like the perfect bride. Her groom stood beside her, smiling proudly. Everything seemed perfect. The flowers, the lights, the music. It was all just like Mako had dreamed. Syrah sat quietly in the second row, wearing a plain dress, her hands folded in her lap. She had come only to support her sister, even though her heart felt heavy. The vows began. The officiant asked Mako to repeat the words of love and commitment. She smiled, looked at her groom, and began to speak. But then, she paused. Everyone looked up, confused. Mako turned away from her groom and faced the guests. Still smiling, she held the microphone closer. "Before I say I do," she said, her voice sweet, "I want to congratulate someone very special to me." People leaned in, curious. "My sister, Syrah," she said, pointing. "She's also expecting a little one." The room went still. "Let's all clap for the new mother-to-be," she added, her smile sharper now. "Even though the father isn't around, or willing to claim her." The hall burst into noise. Some guests gasped, others laughed behind their hands. A few shook their heads. Syrah froze in her seat. Her heart dropped. Her secret, something she had tried so hard to hide, was now out in front of everyone. Her face turned pale. Her mother, sitting beside her, couldn't even look up. She stared at the floor, shame covering her like a blanket. Even the officiant didn't know what to say. He looked from Mako to Syrah, unsure if the ceremony should go on. Syrah stood up, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't say anything. She just wanted to leave. Her legs felt heavy as she turned to walk out. The whispers behind her were loud, every word like a sting. But just as she reached the door, it opened. Keanu stepped in. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, eyes scanning the room, searching for her. And when he saw Syrah, his face changed. Soft, serious, full of something she hadn't seen in months, regret, and something else too, courage. The entire hall went silent again, as if the walls themselves were waiting for what would happen next. Keanu wasn't just some random man who walked into the wedding. He wasn't even just an old lover. He was family. He was the groom's cousin. Most people at the wedding didn't know that. They didn't know that Keanu had once been deeply connected to the bride's family through more than just love. He had been helping with the wedding setup, working behind the scenes, staying quiet and keeping his distance. But there was a reason he had stayed away from Syrah all this time. It wasn't because he didn't care. It wasn't because he was ashamed of her or the baby. The truth was darker. Mako had found out everything weeks before. She had seen him talking to Syrah in the market and had followed them once. When she confirmed the truth, she didn't confront them both. Instead, she pulled Keanu aside and made him choose. She warned him that if he stayed close to Syrah, she would destroy him. She would tell lies to the groom, to the whole family, and ruin his name. She said he would lose his job, his position in the family, and everything he had worked for. Keanu was shocked. He had never imagined Mako could be so cold. At first he thought he could fix things quietly, but Mako had power. She spoke with confidence and pride. Keanu panicked. He didn't know how to fight her. So, out of fear, he stepped back. He left Sira without a word, thinking it was the only way to protect both of them. But every day since then, he had lived with guilt. He thought of her all the time, wondered how she was doing, wondered how she felt, wondered if she hated him. On the day of the wedding, he planned to stay invisible. He would watch from a distance, just to see if Sira was okay. But when he saw Mako stand up in front of the whole hall and throw Sira's secret like dirt on the floor, something inside him snapped. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. He couldn't watch her break the only woman who had shown him real love. He realized he had been a coward, hiding behind fear. But now, fear didn't matter. Sira was alone, and he was done watching her suffer while Mako smiled. So, he walked through the door, not as a guest, not as a cousin, but as a man ready to fight for what he had once walked away from. Keanu walked to the front of the hall slowly, with all eyes watching him. People whispered, confused. Some guests recognized him, but no one expected what he did next. He gently took the microphone from the officiant, who stepped back in silence. Keanu turned to face Mako. His eyes were calm, but his voice was strong. He didn't shout. He didn't speak with anger. He just told the truth. "You said she was a disgrace," he said, looking straight at Mako. "But this woman, she is the reason I became a man." The hall became quiet. No one moved. Even Mako didn't speak. She looked shocked, her lips slightly parted, unsure what was happening. Keanu didn't stop. He turned slowly and looked at Sira, who was still standing near the door, confused and frozen in place. He spoke again, this time to her. "I was a coward," he said softly. "I let fear control me. I let lies keep me away from you. But I won't be that man anymore. Not today." Then, he walked over to her. The hall remained silent, waiting. When he reached her, he got down on his knees in front of her, and without saying another word, he placed his hands gently on her belly and kissed it. Gasps filled the room. Loud, shocked gasps. Some women covered their mouths. A few guests dropped their fans. The groom's parents stared in disbelief. The bride's side looked frozen. No one expected it. No one saw it coming. Sira's hands covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't know whether to cry or speak or run. Everything she had been holding in, pain, fear, shame, it all started to break inside her. But this time, it wasn't breaking her. It was freeing her. Keanu stayed on his knees. He didn't care who was watching. For the first time, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't scared. He just wanted her to know he was there, and he wasn't going to leave again. Mako stood at the front of the hall, completely still. Her face was pale, her smile gone. She had tried to ruin her sister's name in front of the whole village. But now, the story was no longer in her hands. Sira wasn't the one being laughed at. The shame had turned around, and the room that once echoed with judgment now sat in silence, watching a man kneel before the woman he once left and the child they were about to welcome. The groom stood still at first, trying to understand what had just happened. He had watched everything. Mako's cruel announcement, the guests' laughter, and then Keanu's powerful confession. The wedding that was supposed to be a celebration had turned into something else. His face changed from confusion to disappointment. Slowly, he turned to look at Mako, and his voice came out, low but clear. "You threatened your own sister?" he asked, staring at her with disbelief. "You lied to me. You used our wedding day to humiliate her in front of everyone?" Mako tried to speak, but no words came out. Her lips trembled, but she had no answer. The groom's eyes were filled with hurt, not just for himself, but for Sira too. He had seen her face when Mako exposed her. He had seen the pain, the shame, and then the strength she showed. And now he knew it wasn't just an accident. Mako had planned it. She had used the day that was supposed to be about love and turned it into a stage for cruelty. He looked down at the boutonniere on his chest, the small flower pinned for the wedding, and slowly pulled it off. Without saying anything more, he threw it on the ground in front of Mako. The soft flower hit the floor, but the message was loud. "You can keep your flowers, Mako," he said, "but I won't marry someone who blooms in another woman's tears." The hall was silent again. Some guests looked at each other, unsure what to do. Mako's hands were shaking. Her eyes darted around, hoping someone would stand up for her, but no one did. The groom's words had cut through everything. In that moment, people saw her differently, not as the perfect bride, but as someone who had used love to hurt. Sira stood still, shocked. She had never wanted this to happen. She had come quietly, without causing trouble. She had never expected her secret to become public, or for Mako's wedding to break apart. But the groom had made his choice. He turned away from Mako, walked down the steps of the stage, and stood beside Sierra. He didn't say another word. He just stood there, as if protecting her from the eyes and whispers. Mako was left standing alone, holding a bouquet that no longer meant anything. The wedding was no longer hers. The moment was gone, and all that remained was silence, truth, and the sound of her crown slipping just slightly on her head. People began standing up from their chairs. The music had stopped, and the smiles had disappeared. Guests, still shocked by what had happened, quietly picked up their handbags and slowly started leaving the wedding hall. No one looked at Mako. No one rushed to fix her crown or offer her comfort. She stood in the middle of the stage, frozen like a statue, her eyes wide, her lips shaking. Her makeup, once perfect, had started to smear under her eyes. The tears had ruined the work of the artist she had booked months ago. Her bouquet had slipped from her hands and lay forgotten on the floor. She didn't move. All her plans, all the tiny details she had spent months arranging, meant nothing now. She had rehearsed every part of the ceremony in her mind, the walk down the aisle, the smiles from the guests, the perfect vows. But what she hadn't planned for was her world collapsing in front of everyone. She thought her words would crush Sierra. She thought the shame would make her sister run away and hide forever. But instead, it all turned on her. Her own plan had become the thing that destroyed her. She had wanted to shine brighter than ever. She had wanted applause, cheers, and praise. But now, all she could hear was silence, broken only by soft footsteps as people left one by one. She looked around and saw empty chairs, disappointed faces, and quiet disapproval. Even her own bridesmaids didn't come near her. The groom was gone. The future she had imagined disappeared in just a few minutes. Sierra, the sister she tried to embarrass, now stood taller than ever. She didn't cry, she didn't shout. She simply turned and walked away with quiet dignity. Keanu walked beside her, holding her hand, not saying anything but giving her strength. Sierra didn't look back. She didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said had already happened. She walked out of the hall with her head high, not because she had won, but because she had survived with grace. Behind her, Mako finally dropped to her knees. Her sobs filled the space Sierra left behind. Her crown slipped further, no longer a symbol of pride, but of a day that had turned into her greatest shame. The girl who once called herself a queen was now alone on the floor, surrounded by broken dreams and fading whispers, and the only thing she could do was cry. Sierra didn't go online. She didn't post pictures or talk about what happened at the wedding. There were no long messages, no celebration, no words of revenge. She just quietly left the wedding hall with Keanu and returned home. Her heart was still heavy. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. She was no longer alone. At first, everything felt strange. Keanu had been gone for so long. Sierra didn't know if she could trust him again. She didn't know if he would stay, but he didn't make promises. He just started showing up every day. He didn't talk too much, but he helped in ways that truly mattered. He built a small crib by hand, piece by piece, smoothing the wood with care. He didn't ask for praise, he simply did it. When the roof of her mother's market stall started leaking, he fixed it before the rain came. He cleaned the gutters, patched the holes, and made sure her mother had shade to sit under. People in the village noticed. They saw how he stayed close to Sierra, walking beside her when she went to the market, carrying her baskets without being asked. Every action he took was quiet, but it spoke of regret, respect, and love. Sierra watched him carefully. She didn't rush to forgive, but she saw the change in him. He didn't try to explain everything with words. He let his hands, his time, and his care speak for him. Little by little, the wall between them began to soften. He started planting flowers outside her window. He washed the baby clothes she had hidden away. He would leave warm soup in the kitchen when she was too tired to cook. Sierra's mother, who had once avoided looking at her, also began to soften. She saw how Keanu treated her daughter, not like a problem, but like a blessing. Sierra didn't talk much about Mako or the wedding. She didn't need to. That chapter was over. Her focus was now on what was growing inside her, and the man who was slowly trying to rebuild what he had broken. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of silence, still days of doubt, but Sierra was no longer living in fear or shame. She didn't need a big wedding or loud applause. She had peace. And in a small house at the edge of the village, A quiet beginning had started, with simple acts of love and a second chance that didn't need to be announced. Months passed. The village had calmed down, but people still whispered about that wedding, the one where everything went wrong, the one where a bride was left in tears, and the sister she tried to destroy walked away with her head high. Most didn't know the full story. They only knew pieces. Some judged, others stayed quiet. But Sira didn't try to explain. She lived her life, quietly and peacefully. One sunny morning at the market, a little girl tugged on Sira's dress. Her eyes were big with curiosity as she looked up and asked, "Auntie Sira, is it true you ruined a wedding?" For a moment, there was silence. Some women nearby turned their heads, waiting to hear what she would say. Sira looked down at the girl, then smiled gently. "No," she said softly, "I just refused to be ruined by one." The girl didn't fully understand, but she smiled back anyway. Just then, Keanu walked up behind Sira, holding their tiny newborn daughter. The baby was sleeping peacefully, wrapped in soft white cloth. It was the kind of cloth people used for wedding dresses. Clean, pure, beautiful. Keanu placed the baby gently in Sira's arm. She looked down at her daughter, then kissed her forehead. The cloth was softer than anything she had ever worn on any celebration day. Softer than any veil, warmer than any ring, and more meaningful than any crown. That moment said everything. Sira didn't need a fancy stage, loud music, or applause. She had something better. She had her peace, her child, and a love that was slowly healing and growing. She had survived the storm. She had walked through betrayal, shame, and heartbreak, but she didn't let it break her. She had chosen herself, and now life was gifting her something far more precious than revenge: quiet joy. Behind her, the sounds of the market returned, people selling yams, tomatoes, and spices, children running with bread in their hands. But none of it mattered more than the quiet heartbeat of the baby against her chest. Sira didn't ruin anything. She just chose not to be destroyed. And in her arms was the proof that new beginnings don't always need drums. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in soft cloth, with tiny fingers, and a love that doesn't need to be proven, only protected. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded. You don't have to fight to be loved. You just have to choose peace over pain. Follow for more stories where women rise, not with noise, but with quiet power.